What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we are heading into week 12 of the 2020 college football season, and it's time to update my playoff predictions. We do this every week. Actually, we've already started week 12 with the MAC games that have already taken place, but those really have no impact on the playoff picture, so that doesn't really matter. We usually do this on Thursday. Next week, it's going to be a little bit different. We have Thanksgiving, and I'm probably going to jam all my videos in between Sunday and Wednesday so I can get them all up before Thanksgiving. I don't know exactly. We also have the playoff rankings, the first playoff rankings next week. I usually do a reaction video to that, and also I try to project what the committee is going to do. So we'll try to do some stuff like that next week where this channel is probably going to pick up. We're going to be doing more videos over the next few weeks as we really get down the stretch in this playoff picture and just finish up this college football season, which is, I think, going to be really exciting. And once we get that first playoff ranking from the committee, I think it'll be much more clear as to how this playoff picture is going to look. You know, we're going to find out if Cincinnati really has a chance. Where do they rank them? Do they rank them at number 5, number 6? You know, if they're up there that high, then Cincinnati has a really good shot to make the playoff. If they rank them at number 15, they got no chance. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Same thing with BYU and some of these other teams that are not Power 5 teams. But let's get into my predictions this week. I've made no change at number 1. I still have Alabama at number 1. Although I am starting to think more and more that Florida can beat Alabama in the SEC championship. Right now, I'm still leaning towards Alabama. I want to see really how these two teams finish up the season. We haven't seen Alabama in a couple of weeks. Are they going to come off missing these 2 weeks a little bit rusty? How are they going to look now? They really haven't played a good team since Jalen Waddle went down with the injury. And I mean, who are they going to play? Kentucky's got a pretty good defense, so that'll be an interesting matchup there, but they're going to win that game easily. And, you know, I don't really know. I don't really know about Alabama. I think that this is the best team in college football, but we, again, haven't seen them play a great team outside of Texas A&M, and they had Jalen Waddle in that game, so what do they look like without him? That will be a big story moving forward. I think the defense was getting better and better, but like I said, they haven't really played anyone good. So the jury is still out on Alabama. It's not going to shock me if they wind up losing to Florida in the SEC championship, but based off of what I've seen, I still think this is the better team, and I'm going to pick them to win as of now, and I think they get the number 1 seed. I think Ohio State still gets the number 2 seed. I think they go undefeated. What's going to help them is if Indiana finishes strong. Indiana's a top 15 team, and then they play maybe an undefeated Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship, a top 10 team. That's going to be your 2 wins, the 2 wins that will boost their resume. And if they are undefeated, I think that'll be enough to put them ahead of any one-loss team from another Power 5 conference. So I've got the Buckeyes at number 2, and I do have Clemson beating Notre Dame in a rematch in the ACC Championship. I think the game will be close, though. We just continue to see Notre Dame get better and better. Ian Book continues to get better and better. Was really impressed with their win over Boston College and the way they really, just dominated that game for the most part. That was a really nice win for them, and you can see that the focus is there for the Irish. It's going to be a good game, in my opinion, but I think Clemson does pull it out if they're healthy on defense and Trevor Lawrence is back. I think they're the better team on a neutral field, but I think that game will be close. I think it will be a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. Now, maybe Clemson wins it by 10 or 14 points, but I think it'll be close in the fourth quarter. And I think because of that, and I've really had a hard time with this number 4 pick. It's, to me, between Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Cincinnati. Those are the 3 teams. I know you can look at some other teams, and we'll show you some other teams in a second, but those are the 3 teams. Unless we get chaos, it'll be between those 3 teams. If Notre Dame beats Clemson, then that obviously opens up the door for Cincinnati or Texas A&M, and Clemson will be out, so you could maybe get 2 of those 3 teams in. But I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I went with Cincinnati last week. Now, after an impressive win over Boston College, I think Notre Dame can get it done. I think they can finish the regular season undefeated. They have one more test against North Carolina, an explosive offense. That'll be an interesting game there, but North Carolina's defense has just been awful, so I really like Notre Dame's chances to win that game now. And I think they, again, play Clemson pretty close. And because of that, I think the committee's going to put them in here. If the game is not close, then I think it goes to Cincinnati or Texas A&M. I just don't know about Cincinnati and what they're going to have on the resume. SMU now with a second loss. That's not going to be a top 15 team. Maybe not even a top 25 team. Who knows what the committee's going to do. You've got UCF, who is just not what we thought they would be. You've got Tulsa. That could be an impressive win. They could be a top 25 team, but neither team is going to be, like I said, top 15, top 10. So there just won't be much of a resume for Cincinnati. The fact that they're blowing teams out is good for them. If they blow out UCF and they blow out Tulsa and then they blow out Tulsa or SMU in the American Championship game, I think there's going to be a really good case for Cincinnati to get the number 4 seed, which is kind of what I was thinking last week. But again, if Notre Dame plays Clemson really close, I think the committee is going to put them in there. You also have the argument with Texas A&M. If Notre Dame is ahead of Texas A&M going into championship weekend, I have a hard time moving a team that doesn't play ahead of a team that earned a spot in a conference championship game. Now I say that, but then at the same time, actually Texas A&M I think is going to play that weekend because they're going to reschedule some games. So that opens up the door for Texas A&M to maybe pass Notre Dame. It's just very tough, and it's going to come down to really how both of these teams finish and how that final game goes. If Texas A&M starts blowing teams out, if they beat Auburn by 30 points, I think A&M could get this spot. But when we're comparing these teams and we're saying that these are the teams that are, these 4 teams and then Texas A&M, maybe Cincinnati, say that those are the teams you're comparing. If Notre Dame has a win over Clemson and then they also have a close loss, then that tells me that Notre Dame is on the same level as Clemson. They're on the same level as these elite teams. Texas A&M would have the win over Florida, so that tells me, yeah, maybe they're on that same level. But if Florida is not real competitive with Alabama, that kind of knocks Florida off of that category. And then you have Alabama, where Texas A&M lost by a lot. I think that was a 20-something point win maybe. So when you're comparing that and you say, well, Notre Dame can compete with this top tier, Texas A&M cannot because they couldn't compete with Alabama, I think ultimately that could be what gets Notre Dame that number 4 spot. I know that's a lot. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. But we'll break this down more. We'll do maybe a blind resume test, something we've done in the past. Always kind of fun to see what you guys, who you would pick without seeing the name of the team. So these are my picks as of now. Again, I'm very close to A&M, very close to Cincinnati. It's very hard for me to pick that number 4 team. I think I'll have a much better idea of where I think it's going to go once we get those first playoff rankings. Texas A&M could be ranked ahead of Clemson. They could be ranked ahead of Ohio State. If they're ranked high enough, I think Texas A&M is probably going to be that number 4 team. And then, of course, seeing where Cincinnati is going to be. But I think Alabama Notre Dame will be a good game. Notre Dame has proven, they can compete with the top teams in college football. But I don't think they win. I think Bama will take that one in a close game, similar to, I think, what we'll see in Notre Dame, the game of Notre Dame versus Clemson in the ACC championship game. Ohio State, I think, will beat Clemson. I think they've been... that loss last year has been fueling them all season. They will be focused. They will be ready to go. We've seen some holes really on both of these teams, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think it'd be a great game, close game, 1-possession game. Maybe comes down to the final possession. But Justin Fields will win it for the Buckeyes. He will redeem himself after the game last year. And I've got Ohio State advancing to the national championship to play Alabama. And I'm going to go back with what I said last week. Which coach do I trust? And with all this craziness going on this year, I trust Nick Saban. I think Alabama wins the national championship, but it's a risky pick because, again, Alabama may not beat Florida. If they lose to Florida, what's going to happen here if everything else plays out the way I'm predicting? We could see Florida jump all the way to number 1, and then I think we might see Ohio State at number 2, Alabama number 3, Clemson number 4, or maybe we see Ohio State go to number 1 because they're undefeated. Then we see Florida at 2, Clemson 3, Alabama number 4. It's kind of tough to really figure out what would happen if that does happen, if Florida does beat Alabama. But again, once we get those first playoff rankings next week, I think it'll be a much more clear picture of how this will go with all the different scenarios. And like I said, we will continue to break those down. Here are the teams that I'm putting as the top contenders for number 4. I think you can draw a line under Cincinnati. I really think that final spot's between Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Cincinnati. Florida, if they beat Alabama, they're in. So, and when we're talking about controlling your own destiny, Florida actually has the best chance, or has a better chance than A&M or Cincinnati, because if they went out, they're in. I just don't know that they're going to beat Alabama. It's going to be a great game. And then we have Oklahoma State, Miami at number 4. Hurricanes, probably not going to have much of a chance. You're going to need a lot of chaos. They're probably not going to go to the ACC championship. They need Clemson to lose another game, or perhaps Notre Dame to get upset by North Carolina and then somehow win a tiebreaker on the three-way tie. I just don't know how that's going to wind up going, but there is a path there if they go undefeated and things go just right. They could make it. Oklahoma State, if they win out and win the Big 12, I think they're going to have an argument. Oregon and USC, I said it before, I don't think these teams are winning impressively enough. Oregon's getting it done. USC's really struggling, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. It's just not going to be enough on the resume for these teams. If they go undefeated, they're going to need a lot of help. BYU Liberty, same case. They're going to need a lot of help to get in. Although Liberty could have wins over Virginia Tech, NC State, Syracuse, and Coastal Carolina. So you could make an argument for Liberty. I think they need to be impressive, though, in these final games. They need to beat NC State by multiple touchdowns. They need to beat Coastal Carolina by multiple touchdowns. They need Coastal Carolina to stay undefeated. Of course, they've got a big game with App State. So there's a lot there for Liberty that is going to need to happen, but it could happen. It could happen, as crazy as that sounds. Then you have Texas, Oklahoma. If it's complete chaos, if A&M loses another game, Cincinnati loses a game, Florida's out, Oklahoma State loses a couple of games, Miami loses another game, Oregon, USC, neither team goes undefeated, BYU gets upset, Liberty gets upset. If all these things happen, then you can maybe see a two-loss Texas or Oklahoma make it to the playoff if they win the Big 12 championship. It's a long shot. It is very, very unlikely. I'd put it at less than 1%, but it's possible. And it would be crazy, but it's been a crazy season already. Although it seems like it's settled down a little bit. I think we had a lot of upsets. We had some chaos early in the season, but it seems like things have settled down. Look back to last week, Florida, Notre Dame, they took care of business, and maybe we won't see that many upsets down the stretch. Maybe we will. Who knows what's going to happen? All we can do is wait and find out. But this is my updated playoff picture, my updated playoff predictions. I'm still going with Alabama to win it all. Who do you have winning it all? Who do you have in the playoff? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.